Hi friends, this is Jim and I'm back in the shop today, and this is going to be a VR to the VR to the VR to the VR of Thee Diabeticman, who Tom talked about upping your pipe game and trying different pipes, and if you're using machine-made pipes, maybe step it up to an artisan pipe, or if you're smoking a cob or a basket pipe, maybe step it up to a machine-made pipe like a Morgan Pipes Blackjack or a Dagner pipe or something of that nature, or even a Savinelli or a Peterson, something like that. Do a little housekeeping here before we get started. Smoking one of my Castellos. I'm in the shop. This is an estate Castello that I picked up. Just look at that grain. Yeah, it's a sea rock. It's got great rustication on it. Smokes nice. But Tom asked a couple of questions in his last VR to the VR to the VR to the VR. And he was asking about drilling and what makes Castello different from Dunhill to artisan pipes and things of that nature. He also asked about Rick Newcomb and a book that he wrote. And when I started, probably 23 or 4 years ago, I started smoking cigars, and I dabbled with a pipe here and there. Never knew how to pack it right, so always fought it, burnt the crap out of my tongue, never really enjoyed it, but every year I tried and smoke a couple of bowls. And it wasn't until probably about 4 years ago or so when I really learned how to pack a pipe and how to smoke a pipe. But when I was getting into pipes about 4.5 years ago and really started collecting pipes, I picked up a copy of Rick Newcomb's book, In Search of Pipe Dreams. Now this is offered in paperback, or you can get the audio version and download it and listen to it. I have both. On long trips, it's fantastic to pop in the audio one and just listen to it while you're driving down the road. Very, very, very much enjoyable, and get a lot of information from it. And I had some machine-made pipes from the big companies, Peterson, Stanwell, and some others. And I started smoking the pipes and packing them right, and they smoked well, but they weren't smoking great. And I'd heard about this book for some other pipe smokers at local pipe club, so I picked it up, started reading it, and Rick dedicates a whole chapter to your pipe should have an easy draw. Okay, this is chapter 8, and in here he goes through and he talks about Jim Benjamin, who he would send his estate pipes to, and the community lost Jim back in 2007, but previous to that, a lot of pipe collectors were sending their estate pipes to him, and he would do a deep, thorough cleaning with them, and he would drill them out. And most of the time, he was drilling out the shanks on the pipe, shank here, to 4 millimeters, which is 5/32 of an inch drill bit. So he'd open it up. Most standard pipes that are machine made are drilled right around 3 mil, and sometimes a little smaller. And what he'd do is on the stems, if they were bent pipes, he'd straighten them, and he would go ahead and he would drill out the stems. And I'm not sure, I think he's drilling them out probably somewhere between 3 millimeter and 4 millimeter, and rebending the stems and cleaning them for customers. And they get them back and they're like, oh my God, this smokes so well. I can't believe how great this smokes. And so Rick wrote about it in his book. And when I read that, I told my dad, I'm going out in the shop right now and I'm opening up a couple of these pipes. So I brought out half dozen pipes, and I took a 5/32 bit and drilled it right through the shank. And after I did that, I took I think it was a 1/16 of an inch bit, might have been next size up, and I would drill in a little bit of the ways because I wasn't making pipes at that point, and I didn't know how to bend stems, so I'd only drill in, you know, prior to where it would start to bend, and then I would come up the other direction with a larger drill bit and open it up, and it seemed to really help the pipe. Now that I know how to make pipes and stuff, I would just heat it up, straighten the stem, drill it with a tapered bit. I've done this for a few friends of mine, some of the guys in Pipe Club, and once I opened it up, I'd drill in from the other way, and a lot of the production pipes have a little notch, horseshoe type, like they cut it with a Dremel blade, little zzz in here for a fan, which really doesn't work real well for a fan. And so I would take a tool and I would open that fan up, more of a V shape, and open it up a little further in, and the production pipes are smoking fantastic. One of the production companies you don't have to do that with, and I say production because they make so many pipes, but a lot of their pipes are handmade, are Castellos. And Castellos drill there differently. Their pipes, they have a large hole, so it's usually about a 4.5 millimeter hole, which I think is 11/32, and they have a smaller hole up through the stem, more of like a 2.5 to 3 millimeter. And their idea and their thinking behind it was that when you're drawing on the pipe, it's getting a large volume down here, and it is pushing it up through the stem and forcing it up into your mouth, so you don't have to draw as hard. And all the Castellos I've had have smoked well, except for this one here. This I got as an estate. The other ones I got brand new, and all the other ones I got brand new all smoked fantastic, but I know why this one was an estate, because it was crushed when they bent it. They crushed the air hole, and it was a simple fix for me. I just heated the stem up till it was straight, re-drilled it, put a pipe cleaner in it, heated it up, and I re-bent it and then polished it up. So now it smokes like a champ. So that's why Castellos smoke so well, and a lot of people love Castellos. They don't love the price tags on them because they usually start off at around $450 for a new one, and they go up to shoot $8,000 to $10,000 depending on what model you want. But anywhere in between, you can get some really nice Castello pipes. And I'm sorry, when I did the housekeeping, I didn't say what I was smoking in here, and I'm smoking some Davidoff Royalty. So drinking a little water because it's already like 81 degrees out here in the shop. Excuse me, gotta stay hydrated. So Castello does drill theirs differently compared to Dunhill. Dunhills have a little tighter draw on them. All of the major manufacturers use different drill bits for different shapes. If you're doing a billiard bent straight, doesn't matter, or an apple bent or straight, pipes like that, you're going to use a standard drill, and this is more of a U-shaped drill on it, and that's because at the bottom you're going to carry the wall thickness all the way down on the pipe. You're going to carry that wall thickness all the way down, so you can have a U-shaped drill at the bottom here, and your draft hole go into it. Now I've done another video on this before. I think it was like it was a VR to some questions that Pottsville Piper James had, and I think those were like my 4th and 5th and 6th episodes or something like that, but way back when. If you want to go back and watch those, I got a lot more information in those on drilling and things of that nature, and why different bowl shapes smoke better and smoke differently. But in standard sizes or shapes, you're getting a U-shaped bowl in a majority of the pipes. Now when you come to an odd shape bowl, you're going to get one of two shapes. You're either going to get a bit like this, which is a J. Allen bit. It's a parabolic, which means it's more of a, comes into a point, more of an acorn shape. These are the drill bits I use now. When I first started, I used round spade bits, and I used bits like this one here, and this one here is for drilling a pointed bowl. It's more of a acorn shape. You use this for like a bulldog, and the reason you use that is if you're drilling a Dublin or a bulldog, you know you're removing material at the bottom where the bowl is at. You're trying to keep the wall thickness on there around 1/4 of an inch or more so that it dissipates the heat and doesn't burn out. So you have to use different drill bits for that, and by doing that it changes the yeah, I can say it, come on Jimmy, characteristics of the way a pipe smokes. And I found that a bowl that is narrow and is more like an acorn, it comes down into a point like maybe on a Dublin, smokes flakes in Virginias really well. I've found that a bulldog that has a larger diameter hole, like a 7/8 or 13/16 hole, that's a parabolic, that's like an acorn, tend to smoke Virginias and flake well because of the way the bowl is shaped. It comes down to that point, the smoke rolls off the top, comes down the sides, and it changes the flavor of tobaccos when you smoke them out of different shaped bowls, whether it's taller bowl or a larger diameter bowl or the shape of the bottom of the bowl. It's going to change the way the smoke rolls through and the way the tobacco actually tastes, as does different types of material you're using, whether it's briar, morta, olive wood, meerschaum, clay. They're all going to taste differently. Now, I'm holding this pipe up here because there's other things that you have to think about too, the way it's drilled. If I was to drill straight through with this stem to the tobacco chamber, I'd drill it right out the bottom of the bowl. I'd lose my shape. So I have to drill at an angle to meet the bottom of the tobacco chamber, and then I have to change the way I drill so that stem goes in straight to the shank and it has the right aesthetics. So a lot of times when pipe makers are drilling this, especially the ones made on the machines, they drill in the mortise a little too deep, and the hole for the draft hole gets high into the shank, so it's not dead in line with it. Okay, now I've had it happen with pipes that I've made. Machine pipe, they just slap a stem in there, and you're not going to pass a pipe cleaner all the way to the bottom of the chamber. You're not going to have a dry smoke. It's going to smoke wet, it's going to gurgle. And the way it's drilled is causing the condensation in there, and it's trapping it. So it's going to gurgle, and the only way you're going to be able to get the condensation out of there, or the spit, is to flick it, because your pipe cleaner is not going to go all the way through. Okay? As an artisan pipe maker, what I do is I take a Dremel and I go inside the mortise, and I elongate that draft hole down just past center of the mortise. By doing that, when I push the stem in, my stem's going right up to it, and when you can push a pipe cleaner, it'll go all the way through to the bottom, because that's very important to me. It's got to be able to pass a pipe cleaner. So that's one thing I do as an artisan pipe maker to make it smoke better. Also, when I fit the tin into the mortise, so when the stem goes into the mortise, there's most of the time the machine-made pipes are using pre-made stems. They're one size, and they want to make sure that they don't have to go back and adjust anything. So they drill that mortise deep into the shank, and they slap that tin in there, and they call it good. And I've seen them anywhere from, shoot, probably 1/8 of an inch up to 3/8 of an inch distance between the bottom of the mortise to where the tenon ends. Okay, by doing that, you're creating a chamber in there, and it disrupts the airflow when you're smoking, causes condensation, causes a point for gurgling. Okay, as an artisan pipe maker, I make sure mine is right down at the bottom. Now, when I first started making pipes, I made sure they touched, and it was absolute perfect fit to the bottom of the mortise with the tenon and the stem to the shank. And what I found is, as that pipe heats up, it expands and it pushes that stem up a little bit, and you'd have a hairline gap right there, and it didn't look right aesthetically. So what I've learned is, when I fit it, and I hand fit those tenons into the mortise, I leave about anywhere between let's see here, it's 0.1 to 0.25 millimeter. So human hair, about that much in between them, because if you don't leave a little bit of a gap, it's going to swell and expand with the moisture and the heat, and it's going to push the stem up out of the shank, and it looks funny. By leaving that little gap, the pipe heats up, the bottom of the mortise comes right up to the bottom of the tenon, it fits perfectly, and you have a good smoke. That smoke travels right from the chamber right on up and out. Okay, that's important. If you pull out your stem, and when you pull it out, I always preach, unscrew it out, screw it when you put it back in, and it'll stay tight for years and years to come. If you just pull it out and push it in, you're going to get wear on it, and it's going to get loosened up on you. Some people like to rock it back and forth, back and forth. I don't. I like to just unscrew it, and it comes right out. Take it, screw it right in, fits nice and tight. Stays nice and tight. If you take your stem out and you look in there and you're always getting sledge in the bottom of your mortise, odds are you measure that tenon and then measure down in there. You measure down in the mortise inside here. There's going to be a gap because this is going to be too short. This is your tenon right here on the end of your stem. That's going to be too short. So that's important. You want it right down there close to the bottom, not actually touching prior to smoking, because if it does, it'll end up, and it's just, I mean, it would come out, and I don't even know if you can see that, but I mean, it would just have a hair of a gap if it fits right flush to the bottom. Not a big deal, but I'm very anal and I'm a perfectionist, and I want it to fit perfect. So I've learned that trick. Okay, there's different kinds of drilling for straights and bents. With a straight, you can drill it straight in with your draft hole right dead center of your mortise. And if you're doing a standard size pipe, you know, like a group 3 or 4 or 5 billiard, there's no problem. You're gonna have plenty of meat on the bottom. You're doing a smaller pipe, you know, you got to think about it. Well, you're taking more material off the bottom of it, so it's going to make the bottom of the bowl thin. You don't want that. So you might drill your mortise straight in. When you come to drill your draft hole, you have to, you know, change the angle of it a little bit so that when you tip it, it drills a little higher and keeps the bottom of the chamber up a little bit. Okay, that gives you a little more room in the bottom. So these are the things that indie pipe makers, independent pipe makers, high-grade pipe makers, master pipe makers, these are things that we work on, little tricks that we do so the pipe lasts. Because we're not building, well, we are building the tool for you to smoke, but we're also building an heirloom, something that you can pass down to your children, and they can pass down to their children, to their children. It's going to last, okay? That's a little bit different between a machine-made pipe and an indie pipe maker, the little things that we go through and that we work on to try to make a pipe smoke perfect, look perfect, and last. So another thing too that independent pipe makers do is we check here at the section of the button, right in front of the button here. That's the money maker. Most independent pipe makers in that section there are 4 millimeters or less, and most of them are less than that. They're somewhere between 3.5 to 3.7, maybe 3.8 millimeters. If you're used to smoking factory stems, and you take one of those and pop it in your mouth, you're gonna be like, whoa, what a difference. It's a lot more comfortable. I've heard, I think it's the second book, Still in Search of Pipe Dreams by Rick Newcomb. It might be in the first one, but he talked about getting a Costello pipe and being at the factory and talking to him, and he asked him to thin down the bit for him, because there's usually, it's on a Costello, it's an acrylic bit, and usually it's going to run probably about 4.5 to 5 millimeters at the button. It's going to be a little thick and a little round, and that's another thing you want to look for in a pipe. I'm giving you a lot to look at. Shape of the bowl, where the draft hole comes out in the bowl, where your tenon comes out in the mortise, things of that nature. That information has been out there a lot. So, but also the way the stem is shaped. the way the button's shaped. If you got a stem and it's got a dome to it, you know, you put that in your mouth, and a lot of the meerschaum pipes have that. They make these beautiful meerschaum pipes, but they don't spend a lot of time on the stems and those dome stems. And if you have one, you throw it in your mouth, it is not comfortable at all. It does not fit right. Most of the indie pipe makers flatten it out at the button, so when you throw it in your mouth, you got good contact with your teeth, and it's a lot more comfortable. So that's very important. But I hope I answered your questions, Tom. There's a lot of information. I gave out more information on the other videos. Go back and check out my earlier videos. I think they're listed as VR to Pottsville Piper, and they might answer some more of your questions, but give those a look, and then if you have any more questions, shoot me a VR. Anyway, talk to you later. Be well. Stay smoky.